Hello and welcome to Wait, It Gets Better, the improvisational storytelling podcast. We take your stories and we turn them into the most beautiful stories. We take our own ideas and we turn them into the most beautiful stories you've ever heard. I'm, of course, Levi.
Everyone agrees.
Everybody agrees. Greatest stories. I can't do a Trump impression, but...
I'm Reed.
And I'm Seth.
And we are here to tell you this story and to continue on our story from last time. This is episode 2 of Folk Hero Showdown, is what I called it.
That's great.
And the premise is the setting. So last time I had opening scene and Seth had setting. The setting is post-Civil War, kind of in the West area where things are... People are still kind of getting their still trying to find their ground, still trying to figure out what's going on.
Things are more fluid.
Correct.
I'm sorry that I missed last time because it was really, I listened to what you guys did and it's really a fun story, except the very...
Did we get anything historical wrong?
No, I thought it was good. But I especially took issue though with only one thing, and that was in Levi's introduction, Seth, where he talked about scraping out our brains for something, for ideas. I thought that was pretty amusing.
Okay.
All right. So
'Cause I wasn't sure. I know I probably have different opinions on the Civil War than that, and I know you're a history buff on that. So I would appreciate that if I kind of spouted anything that was kind of erroneously horrible, that you could set us straight or set me straight.
I don't even believe the Civil War happened, so I have no opinions.
Fake news.
Yeah,
Everyone
fake
knows.
news.
Everyone's been talking about it.
I
I'm
didn't
not
see any
talking
drone
about it, but
footage.
everybody else is.
I didn't see any drone footage of the Civil War, so it's really... Okay, anyways. This story is post-Civil War, and then my opening scene is Merlin, who was transported to the Americas during or before the Revolutionary War, has had his fingers in the colonization of America and has gathered together a group of people who... Think of them as knights of the Round Table.
They dance whenever able.
Yes, who encapsulate in their personalities an aspect of Merlin's personality. So you have like Johnny Appleseed, right? Who is... His name isn't Johnny Appleseed, but he's a druid who goes around communing with nature, helping people not commune with nature, but helping people understand nature. Then you have like John Henry, right? Who the John Henry character. It's not John Henry. It's the person that when the annals of history try to find a name to encapsulate what this knight did, they will call him, that person, John Henry. Mm-hmm. His fight against modernism, rationalism, and technology. Yeah. Right? And then there's, Paul Bunyan, Calamity Jane, Pecos Bill, Wild Bill Hickok, Anna Oakley, American folk heroes. And they basically get called together because on top of the Devil's Thumb. Is that what it's called?
The Devil's Tower.
The Devil's Tower. They get called on top of that, where Merlin has his sarcophagus and he has to go into druid's sleep for another couple hundred years, right? He came out of it during the Revolution and he helped them all the way up to now. And he tells them that there's a calamity coming, that this isn't the end of war. There's a war coming, even worse than this war, which is, of course, the one he's talking about is World War I, which happens a mere 80 years after the end of the Civil War. So that's no time at all. Is it 80 years or is it? It's it's
more
less
like 60.
Right. Yeah, that's right. What was I thinking about 80 years? I think Revolutionary War to Civil War is 80 years. Regardless. That is what he basically says there's something great happening. It's going to happen. And then he sends them out and they all go back to their respective parts of America to sort of hold up the virtues that they symbolize and that they learned from Merlin. So there's a whole story before this of Merlin going around and gathering these people and training them and teaching them to be the knights that he knows that they can be. But the the end result is this is where they go out. Now, because this is an alternate history, Lincoln did not die. So Lincoln didn't die, and a government organization was created to kind of, like the CIA, to kind of prop up and help these knights wherever they go, right? Whether that be to feed them information, to do the clerical work of gathering information, right? Whether that be to always make sure that Anna Oakley has the shells that she needs for her gun that are the custom size and width that she needs, whether that be the kind of person who can transport a larger than life-size ox across the country for Paul Bunyan's for the Paul Bunyan character, right? So this is a secret organization that goes into every part of life, and that is who the story is about. The story is not about these knights. The story is about these people who are just doing the grunt work, and then the knights will come in and do something fantastic, fight off the chupacabras, battle with the Sasquatch or whatever, but a lot of the fights happen. I think about it like this. You guys have both read all the way through the Dark Tower series, correct?
Yep.
I've somewhere in Songs of Susanna, but
okay, I can't use that then. That sucks.
I think I explained this a story or so ago. Use it or don't use it. I think I've...
Okay, it's kind of like the Tet Corporation, right? The Tet Corporation in the Dark Tower series was created by some people that the Quartet, the gunslingers, the Quartet of 19 and 99, tasked some just absolutely mundane people with forming this corporation and fighting against this evil. And so then years later, you see them and they're just a bunch of regular people trying to do their best. And yeah, they're smarter or faster, but they're not like Roland Deschain of Gilead, smarter and faster. That's the kind of people that this story is about. And then every once in a while, Anna Oakley will come in, or Wild Bill Hickok will come in, or Paul Bunyan will come in, or Johnny Appleseed will come in and do something incredible, but they quickly leave the scene, and then you're left with just the regular people. The other explanation, I said it was the Shield. In Avengers, there's the Shield organization filled with like super spies and stuff. They're not superheroes, they're just the super spies. Anyways, that's enough explanation. So that is the story that we're at right now. There's something happening. There's some organization at work that's trying to move the world towards war, right? Towards World War I. And Merlin said this to them and then went into her sarcophagus and is asleep. He is inaccessible for the next 100 years or so. So now it's up to these people. So that's where we're at right now. What story elements did you guys have?
I have fighting style.
I have unique creature.
I have wise old man. What I want to hear fighting style or unique creature first. I think unique creature could be an interesting thing. If anyone has any world building where they want the main part of the story to take place, that would be good too.
Maybe not world building, but I think I might have said it off air after we got done last time, but I'm not sure if I got into it this far, but I do have an idea as far as like a directional concept that we could be working towards, right? But I can give the unique creature and then, unless you want to hear this other part first.
No, give us that other thing. Here, I want to hear the other part first and then the unique creature.
Okay. So my initial thought, kind of based on where things were, was there is like some different letters and writing from, I mean, we were talking about secret societies, what are they working against, right? That there were people, for lack of better terms, Illuminati, Masonic, movers and shakers that had like World War One, two, and a supposed third planned, and that one and two did follow the timeline that they had in mind for it.
Gotcha.
And it was something that they wrote and like had conspired with or about
Right.
to move the world into in like the mid 1800s, mid to late 1800s, I believe.
You mean the plans were laid then?
Correct. Right. And in some of it, it was one to kind of bring down Russia with the first one and Germany with the second one, which then played out in the Bolshevik Revolution and then the subsequent aftermath of World War One and then World War Two did in fact kind of destroy Germany for what it was,
Yeah, absolutely.
up to that time, right? And kind of humbled them, brought them to their knees as kind of like the powerhouse of being one, like Russia was like the czarist kind of continuation of like the Byzantine Christian Empire, right? And Germany having like the remnants of like the Holy Roman Empire, right? From like that kind of concept being like those kind of driving Christian forces in the world, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And so part of it was like kind of the bringing out the downfall of these, I guess you could say, more or less, Christian empires in the world, right? That held that historical significance, right? And then a third one, and I'm hazy a little bit on what that one was, because that one technically, I don't know if that was happened yet or what that was supposed to look like, but that the one and two did in fact do what they wanted and happened on the time frame. So my thought was that perhaps what's going on here is what they are trying to accomplish is one, because it's post-Civil War, they're trying to kind of reunify, the Union, bring America back together, but also put it in a position. And I don't know if it was it the Monroe Doctrine, but I think that was more European powers need to keep their paws off of the Americas.
Yeah,
right?
it was.
I think that was.
It was basically saying that anyone who tried to settle anywhere in America from now on would be considered an act of invasion.
Right. So maybe something along those lines, but then moving back to more of a foreign policy where the Americas became more isolationist, right? They did not or would not then get themselves involved in the other world's colonial wars, more or less, right?
Okay.
And so perhaps what they're working for, because I'm just thinking of like, John Henry, the like Johnny Appleseed, and the Paul Bunyan. It's like, come on, we're in Minnesota, we should know this one. Paul Bunyan, right? And you kind of look at, I'm just going to take those three, right? So you had Johnny Appleseed, right? Kind of goes west, plants apple trees, plants orchards, like it's kind of prepping this kind of nature, like sustaining thing as people would have went west, right? You have Paul Bunyan, right? Kind of clearing the land for the farmers, right? Getting the prairie turned up with his big ox so that the farmers could get the wheat planted, right? And then you have John Henry kind of fighting this kind of modernizing machine, right? Which then it's like, oh well, we got to keep up with the rest of the world and just blindly move ahead with anything that everyone else has, right? In this kind of modern, not so much in modern and technology maybe, but in like, well, this is where the world is going, so we got to keep up with Britain, or we got to keep, right? But then kind of localizing, trying to set up that America would have all of the independent infrastructure, agriculture, and operations to stay independent of what the rest of the world would try to sway its involvement in.
Okay.
Right. So coming to the calamity, right? Now they're set up in a position where America is, let's say, reunified from the Civil War and now focusing on like their own space, right? Like, what do they need, wheat from another country for? We grow our own agriculture. What do we need, timber and coal for? We have that here. What do we need? Um, any of the industry. We have enough industry here, right, that provides labor and output to provide for our own needs, supplied by our own land, right? And so if it's like kind of this reimagining, shifting that's what they're trying to set up, right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
That's what the good people are trying to set up.
Correct.
So the bad people are trying to basically find a way to pull America back into discord and dependence, basically.
Correct.
Okay.
Because then that's, in a sense, with World War One, a lot of that is like, well, we have traditional allies with these people so that we come to their aid if something happens with them. And then everyone just starts shifting around in this kind of world power, having each other's back in case something happened, right? And then, of course, something happened, right? But kind of to keep that need, because it's like, well, we have to be allied with them. We need Egyptian cotton, right? Or Middle Eastern oil, or coal, or whatever it is from any of these other places, right? Which would dictate their, who they need to be allied with, depending what kind of engineering or um, product and trade that they technically would be having with them, right? To keep their economy going because they needed such and such from these places, right? And so if they could kind of, I don't know if the right word would, but manifest destiny, short sea to shining sea, with the right infrastructure and agriculture and natural resources, develop that, America wouldn't need that from anybody.
Yeah.
Right. Then they wouldn't have to, let's say, come to England's aid or France's aid.
Yeah.
Based on some kind of,
because it was a pincer. It was like official history says it was Germans unrestricted submarine warfare sinking ships. So that would have been American ships. And then the economic ties and the desire to protect global democracy that pushed the U.S. into the war. So you think about it, without a desire necessarily to protect global democracy,
right? And it's, again, like, if Germany was sinking our ships, well, we were also like shipping a bunch of stuff to Britain at that time to help them with the war effort.
So let me understand this. What you're saying is that because Lincoln survived the Civil War because of the help of Merlin and his knights, Lincoln was alive, and therefore his efforts to reunify the North and the South would have been executed closer to his actual will, closer to how he actually wanted it to happen. And if that had happened, then we would have been able to focus more on independence from other countries, and therefore we wouldn't have necessarily been shipping a bunch of stuff, and therefore it wouldn't have been a big deal when Germany started to do these things.
Right.
And so what the enemy of, I guess, America is trying to accomplish in these years between the end of the Civil War and the beginning of World War I, or at least the beginning of America's involvement in it, is to create those dependencies again, so that when things come around, they do want to enter the war, so that they will be a part of it, so that they can be a part of the destruction and the death and the mayhem. Is that
correct?
Okay.
That's the idea. Yeah.
I like it. That's good. What's your creature? What's your neat creature?
My creature is Babe the Blue, Big Blue Ox, which is not an ox. It is a white buffalo. So taking kind of a folklore idea, which I do believe that according to the Paul Bunyan thing, Babe the Blue Ox was blue because Paul Bunyan saved him from
drowning,
frostbite.
Yeah.
Right. However, the way folklore goes, right, the bison is white bison. Have you ever seen one of those?
Just pictures.
Just pictures.
Okay. So with that in mind, right, the white bison, now mixed with like the northern, the snow, the blue sky, right, gets changed to being blue, right, to make it, kind of fanciful.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. But again, kind of according to the folklore, the Paul Bunyan character would have found, Babe, the white bison.
Yeah.
Abandoned or freezing to death, nursed it back to health. And so it's his tame pet, right? But because, the way folklore goes, folklore turns it into an ox and not the bison. And being white, it's now kind of like an adaptable color.
Yeah.
Right. It'll kind of take, right. So if you see him coming over the horizon, right, it's a white bison, the blue sky, right. And it's just kind of, right. Or the more or less like the color association with like, frost and, the cold being in the north. Right. And so that's where it gets the blue.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Thing. But it is his bison, which are very large. Right.
Yeah.
And that is where his giant, blue ox comes from, is it actually being a white bison or buffalo that is his kind of sidekick. Maybe he's got a saddle for it, rides it around. It's much, bigger and stronger. So maybe, that's where some of the stories come, where it can pull more than, the other ox teams, or, take some more of those, kind of folklorish feats because of its size and strength, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's our unique creature. So not like grandly unique, but
yeah, but that's its lore. That's its beginning of its lore, anyways.
Yeah, the uniqueness is that taking that it wasn't an ox, but actually a North American bison that was albino.
Absolutely.
Or making it unique.
Cool.
There is your unique creature.
Cool. I'll go with I can go with mine. It's got a little bit of story building in it, and maybe a place where we can start. Unless you want to go, Reed.
Yeah, I want to throw mine in because it's going to be fairly quick, and it might just fit in.
Okay.
I listened to you guys from last time, and then Levi, when you told me that you gave me my story element fighting style, it absolutely, there was not even a tremor of hesitation. It just was immediately in my brain. And the only thing I struggled with was what to call it, because I didn't want to be, I don't know, like Captain Obvious about it.
Yeah.
But okay, I was going to call it Quick Draw, but basically the aficionado of the handgun, the gunslinger. And if any of you have never read the Dark Tower series, start with Gunslinger by Stephen King. It's a fabulous story. And Roland Duchesne is the kind of the core member of the quartet. That was the first time I was introduced to the notion of the quartet, which we use oftentimes in these stories. But with the Merlin aspect and the legend that Roland's handgun was literally forged from the steel of Excalibur.
Yep.
And so here what you've got is this gang league, so to speak, of these characters. And there's among snipers, in Force Recon or in the SEALs or Delta Force or whoever, there's a whole subculture that, grows up around marksmanship. Well, one of the social things that these people do is they have gun practice, and they keep sharp, and they have extraordinary weapons and forged from steel with elements of Westernness, as we might say. And these are precision handguns that are extraordinarily accurate, and they're very careful. They load their own cartridges. There's a whole kind of mystique around the weapons themselves, and then the expertise in wielding.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not exactly imaginative.
It's gunslinging. That's
it.
That's the fighting style.
That's the fighting style.
Love it.
Absolutely.
I like it a lot.
And couldn't match the Rangers with the big iron on their hip.
Exactly.
Big iron on there. Yeah.
So our wise old man is dead. It's Davy Crockett. He's
Davy Crockett.
So he died in 1836, a long time before the Civil War, right? 130 years before the Civil War.
No, just like
30.
20 or 30.
Yeah.
That's right. 17. He was born in 1786.
Yeah.
I'm good with years, guys. Anyways, he's dead now, though. He was also the founding member and the director. I mean, he was the representative, you know. He like served in the House of Representatives.
Yep.
But he was also the founding member of the Secret Society. Good friend of Merlin, taught from a young age by Merlin to see the land and understand the land. Mm-hmm. Right? And his son is the hero of our story. And his son is his son is Reed, former Texas Ranger. His origin story takes place in an ambush in the rugged Texas plains or Badlands, often referred to as the New Texas or Mexico border. After having been killed and left for dead, he survives via the help of a companion, dons a mask, starts forging bullets out of silver, and is the Lone Ranger.
Hi-ho, silver, away!
So he is the son of Davy Crockett. And so when this is how I have Wise Old Man, but yet have a young man as the main character. Davy Crockett, right, had lots of writings, had lots of information before he went and died at the Alamo, you know.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, wasn't just fighting against the Mexican army. It was something else, you know.
Well, it was also a gathering of this august group. I mean, think
exactly.
Sam Houston, Colonel Travis, Jim Bowie.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Davy Crockett.
Exactly. And so
that's why they had to create new folk heroes, because they all
died
at their end at the Alamo.
Yeah.
And that's why it's a big deal.
Yeah, that's why we have to remember it. And so he is sort of the James. So in like the 007 world, you know, there's the directors and there's the technology people, and then there's like the James Bond people. That's what he is in this organization, right? So he's the one who takes the information that they find and does what violence they can do against, you know, like he can go in and he uses silver bullets because oftentimes the occult and the things that he's fighting against are using, you know, chupacabras, vampires, werewolves, you know, just golems, things, you know, things that are evil and terrible and wicked. But his story isn't told until much later on, right? It's not so much, you know, a lot of people knew about Paul Bunyan and Johnny Appleseed before they knew about the Lone Ranger. People didn't start hearing about him until the radio was really a thing. But he constantly references back to his father, right? Which he doesn't have like the writing. He doesn't have like a lot of time with his father because his father was a very busy man, but he has a lot of like the writings. They kind of like shaped who he became, right? And that is the way in which a wise old man is with him. But I think that the story is a little bit different from the story of the Lone Ranger that we've seen like on TV shows and movies and in the radio, obviously, because that's how history kind of treats it. It's like, because he was the one wielding the guns, he obviously was by himself. And it's like the reality is that he was the tip of a spear, you know, and his Tonto, is that the name of his?
Tonto is his sidekick.
Yeah, Tonto is like another team of people that were with him, you know, and Tonto was just the head of that one. And so history tends to kind of forget that there was, or when it came time to put this on the radio, when someone found the old manuscripts and it came time to put this on the radio, they got a knock on their door, and they got visited by some people who paid them a lot of money or threatened to break their fingers unless they were to redact certain elements of the story, and it turned into just the Lone Ranger and Tonto.
Yeah.
You know?
The names have remained the same, but the story has been changed to protect the innocent.
Yes.
And of course, this secret society is headed by Kimosabe.
No, Kimosabe is the name that Tonto gives the Lone Ranger. Don't say that.
Right. Okay.
So I think we found where this story is going to take place, right? Because the Lone Ranger was set in about the Texas, because he was a Texas Ranger. So it's set in the Texas kind of southern states area, right? And this is post Civil War. So the thing we need now, I feel like, is the great threat, right? What is the great threat? That if it succeeds, it will lead to World War I with American involvement and the destruction, of humanity. What would they try and do to get America back on track with their plans for destruction?
It's just a interesting historical sidelight that Theodore Roosevelt ran for a third term, not as the Republican, but as the Bull Moose Party. And because of splitting the vote, Woodrow Wilson was elected, and his first term, he was, in the middle of his first term, World War I started, and he was adamant about keeping America out of it. In fact, his slogan in the election of 1916 was "He kept us out of war," which is kind of ironic because he gets elected and his second term begins in January of 1917, and all before you know it, over there, we won't come back till it's over there. The whole jingoism and getting the whole country, the press building it up as, we've got to make the world safe for democracy, and, the whole thing that was involved in U.S. entry into World War I. I thought it was kind of interesting that Woodrow Wilson literally campaigned against it and then was elected, and then in his second term, there we are, right in it. Over there. Anyway, sorry, that was kind of a complete aside. That was just a interesting sidelight. To me, it was interesting. Sorry.
No, that's very interesting. How can we use that?
Well, I'm just thinking like there are forces. When you look at the history of World War I, when I was in college, I wrote an essay that I got an A on I had to trace the origins of World War I. Well, it's incomprehensible. It should never have happened. And I to this day, when Wonder Woman came out and it was, the
Ares,
the god of war, had stirred all this up. I mean, that's a better explanation than any historians ever come up with. I'm serious. It doesn't make any sense that all of Europe should have stumbled into this utter bloodletting nonsense. I mean, it was, anyway. But here I was just thinking, and you've got this grouping of people that are shaping history, and somebody, Merlin connected, was able to grab the wrist, and John Wilkes Booth shot high, and he was apprehended, and the assassination attempt was thwarted, and Lincoln went on to institute his plans for with malice toward none and charity for all. Think about when you're playing Risk and someone thwarts you. Yeah. That is you being you're the side on the you're the oppressive side. Mm-hmm. And they're Lincoln that survives the assassination attempt. Yeah. And so then you're like, okay, what's my next?
How do I still accomplish my goal, but from a different angle?
Right.
So part of me is thinking that what this is they're trying to quickly, because what they were counting on is with the assassination of Lincoln, they could increase the animosity between the North and the South, create real division, what's realer than war, but create more.
Did we have real division? No, this time it'll be real division.
create more aggressive division, and then keep people hating each other. Yep. Keep that happening. So that's the same thing that I think that's what's happening now, is what they're trying to do is they're trying to ramp up the division between men.
Yes.
Right? They're trying to get support for, as people are moving west, they're trying to get support for breaking off micro countries.
Yeah.
Over here. Just like Texas. Texas can do it. Texas can do it. We can do it. That's what's trying to happen.
The Lone Star State.
And so there's efforts to cut telegraph lines, to cut railroad tracks, to create isolation of little communities, right? And there's something at work. There's I don't know what it is. There's a group of the occult trying to bathe people with confusion. They're trying to build an army of super soldiers. They're combining chupacabras, which is a chupacabra is the result of a man eating another man's flesh, and then he becomes a chupacabra, right? I think that's the simplest explanation. I always say that because it's like a Southern American, South American thing, right? They're trying to find some way to still get the division that they want, to keep the world in division, because Lincoln is still this shining city on a hill that's offering reconciliation and restoration, but they're refusing to let it happen. And so the Lone Ranger, his group of people are in there, but they're in there with a stopwatch, a timer. They know that Calamity Jane, Wild Bill Hickok, and either Johnny Appleseed or John Bunyan are coming. They're
Paul Bunyan.
Whatever. Yes, Paul Bunyan are coming. They're on their way. And so they need to cut through and find the heart of it, because once the heart is exposed, these knights can come in and just destroy that. If they had to come in and work through all the everything, they can't. They don't have the time for that.
Yeah.
They need to cut through and be ready for when one of these knights show up. They can come in and just destroy the enemy boss, basically. So that is what we need to figure out, how that works next time. Sound good, everybody?
That sounds great.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Wait It Gets Better. I have been dreaming about the Lone Ranger as a vampire hunter for years, and I think it's great. If you think it's great, send us a message at waititgetsbettercast@gmail.com. Message us on Twitter at @getsbettercast. Tell me if you think my idea is a good one. If not, also tell me. And until we see you guys next time, don't forget to wait, because it gets better. Bye.